Today we're going to make a slingshot with 3/8 rebar. Alright, so first of all, let's talk about the slingshot for a minute. You might think because this thing's made out of rebar that it's really, really heavy. Well, it's made out of 3/8 inch rebar, and most of your wire type slingshots, marksman and all those, are made out of 1/4 inch steel rod anyway. So you're talking about a little bit thicker diameter rod, but you've also got a little less material in this because you don't have so many bends and twists. You don't have the back bars, the support bars, and all of that stuff. So I'd say the weight really comes out pretty close to a marksman wrist rocket or something along those lines. This doesn't have the plastic on it for the grip and things like that to add weight as well. So it's really not as heavy as you might think, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. And because it's got some weight to it, it's very, very stable in your hand for shooting. And even with these heavy duty bands on it that we sell at Self Reliance Outfitters for the pocket hunter, this thing just feels great in your hand. It really, really does. So this is a really simple project. We've got a 20-inch piece of 3/8 rebar, and I've tapered both ends. I've coned it down just a little bit and then beveled it off so that it's not going to hurt the bands any from movement this direction or this direction. But it also allows you to get those things fit up on there better. And because this rebar's got some knurling on it, where how the rebar is made, when you slide that band up on there, it gives it a better grab in the end too, and the bands don't want to come off of there. So this 20-inch piece of rebar is what we're going to use to make this slingshot. Stay with me and we'll get the forge fired up because it's pretty simple. Okay, so we're going to use a bending fork in our hardy of our anvil. And we've got 10 inches marked on our anvil here, which is our halfway point, and we're going to use this to make all of our bends. And you could mock something like this up fairly easily, or you could just make all of your bends in a vise, but this makes it quick and dirty. Once we've bent this, if it looks like our bend is a little bit off, what we're going to do is we're going to pound down on the high end, just like that. And then we can close that thing up about to where we want it as far as the width of our grip. We'll get it heated back up. Open that up just a little bit, and then we're going to turn it over and get the fork end heated up in the forge. Alright, now we're looking for, remember, 5 inches. Which is about right there. Keeping everything symmetrical as we go. to come in here and bend those out just a little bit, but I think we're going to go ahead and put our bends in here on the front first and see where we're at, see what that looks like before we decide whether we want to bend this out a little bit or not. So we're going to get these fronts seated up again, and then we're going to put that in a vise to bend those over to 90 degrees. Basics, we're going to have to do a couple things. First of all, we want to make sure the D's are straight up and down, and that may mean putting in a vise and bending these out. For now, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are happy with our bends and that our bends are exactly what we want them to be. So I'm going to come out here and I'm going to bend this out just a little bit here, just a little bit here, to widen that up just a little bit. As even as I can. Then I'm going to come in here and get these straightened out in the vise. So now I'm just looking at this thing for symmetry by putting it on something that it will rest on, and I can look at both sides to see how even they are. This way, how good my bends are here, and how good I'm centered with my handle here. Everything looks pretty good. I just want to do one tweak to this handle because I feel like it's bent just a little bit that way. So I'm just going to take this and twist it a little bit while it's still cool, or still hot, I mean. Might need to heat it up just a little bit more to do that. Every slingshot design is going to be a little bit different. You're probably not going to make two of them exactly alike. Just trying to get everything straight here. Bend that this direction, I think. Okay. That's a really good looking slingshot. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're nice and flat. We don't have any problems there. Everything's laying about the same. Thing looks good this direction. This direction, we got even bends, so we got good symmetry. Like I said, no two slingshots are going to turn out exactly the same. Now we're going to let this thing cool down on its own. Its normalized state is plenty hard for a slingshot. If we try to cool it down quicker with oil quench or water quench, it's going to make it brittle. We don't want that. We want this thing plenty strong. Best way to do that is just let it air cool before we continue. All right, so once we've got our basic frame formed, now we want to see kind of how it fits in our hand, because at this point we can always heat it right back up and make changes if we need to. So grab it in your hand and hold it and see how your hand wraps around it. Bear in mind you're going to probably put something on here for a lacing material, whether it be bank line or paracord, leather wrap, rawhide, whatever you choose, but think about that as well, because it's going to increase the grip a little bit. This actually feels pretty good in my hand. It comes out to the bottom down here, which is what I want. It doesn't quite feel as good as the other one that I made, but it's pretty close. And again, it's not wrapped yet, so it may feel better when it's wrapped. But as far as the spread of the forks go, they look nice and even. The handle looks good, it feels good. So now we're going to just polish these up a little bit on the belt sander and put a band on it, set of bands on it, test it out, And then if it's exactly what we want, then we go ahead and wrap it up. All right, so we're just going to use a set of these heavy-duty bands from Self-Reliance Outfitters. And what I generally do is I get this wet. And I get the bands a little bit wet. And then I let it dry. It makes it easier to go on. So let's talk about putting those bands on real quick. Basically, you want to look at your pocket. And you want to put those bands on so that your pocket stays pretty straight. And you want to get that slid on there to the point where it goes to the end of that upright, if you can, or even a little bit over the top. These fat uprights will hold really, really well. It's not like a thin piece of wire, because you're actually pulling against a cone in the end, which self-tightens it here. Makes it very difficult to come off there. Now, you want to make sure that you turn this thing before it dries so that this hangs like this. You could always turn the one inside here if you need to, but if you can do it while you're putting it on. And while it's still wet, you'll be able to turn it. See how it's hanging straight now? Now I want to do the same thing with this side and get it to hang straight. So I'm going to re-wet that and slide that one on. Grab it with my shirt because it's slick and push it on there. Just like that. Get them on there about the same distance if you can. That way your bands are even, as that's important. You want to make sure when this thing's hanging, when you fold this thing in half, that pocket is even. That pocket's not even, it's not going to shoot right for you. So that's important. That looks pretty good. Now, I would just let it dry. I'll just tuck that right down on the handle for now. We'll let this thing dry a little bit so that nothing's wet in here, and then we'll test the slingshot. All right, guys, well, let's test this dude out. I got some just regular 30 caliber ball ammunition here from Marksman. Again, we want to make sure that pocket is hanging even, so that when we put our ball in there, it automatically goes straight to the center. We got a cup sitting out there, you know, about 10 paces where we were at a few minutes ago when we started the video here. And this one feels a little bit different in my hand. Pulling on it. The uprights might be a little bit too long on this one. Not too bad for the first shot on a brand new one. I nicked it. Well, folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me here today for this quick video on forging a slingshot. And again, don't be afraid that these things are going to be too heavy, because they're really not very heavy. Now, this 3/8 round stock is lighter a little bit than the rebar. The rebar is a little bit heavier metal, but the rebar looks a whole lot more scrapyard rustic than just the round tubing does, and rebar is a lot easier to get a hold of for free. This is a great project to introduce a young person to blacksmithing. It's also a great project to get started in blacksmithing yourself, because it teaches you how to bend and manipulate metal, which to me is a very, very important part of self-reliance. And if you can make a hunting tool, then you're one step ahead of the game. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.